Shortly before 4 in the afternoon of every fourth Monday of July, a date that's set in the Constitution, the 1987 Constitution that is, a helicopter carrying the president will land on this helipad. Or sometimes, as in the past, he or she arrives by car. But that was long before anti-SONA rallies along Commonwealth Avenue and Batasan Road became the norm. So the president will take a chopper from which he disembarks. And as is tradition and protocol, the president is welcomed by the Chief of Staff of the Armed Forces and the Sergeants at Arms of both the Senate and the House of Representatives. The Chief of Staff escorts the president through and as he reviews the honor guard. And at the end of this honor guard formation, the Senate President, for now it's Tito Soto, and the House Speaker will be waiting for the president. And who might that House Speaker be? Well, that depends on who's going to emerge victorious in what's expected to be a bruising fight, in spite of the fact that President Duterte suggested that Alan P. Cayetano and Lord Alan Velasco share a 3-year term between them. This arrival scenario here in what's called the rear entrance is symbolic because the executive, represented by the president and the chief of staff, and the legislative, represented by the Senate President, the Speaker of the House, and their respective sergeants at arms, are both co-equal and independent branches of government. The president is also met by a phalanx of lawmakers, many of them eager to greet him or whisper a thing or two, or at the very least, be seen with him. From here, the president is brought to a holding area. He's ushered into what used to be the Presidential Legislative Liaison Office. The president stays here for a little bit of chit-chat and a meeting with the Senate President and House Speaker and other leaders. The Senate President and the House Speaker proceed to the session hall where they will declare the joint session of Congress open with a bang of their gavels. Both the Senate mace and the House mace, symbols of authority, are put on display at the foot of the rostrum. The Senate President and the House Speaker will announce the President is waiting to deliver his SONA and he will be invited to join them. Now that's when the president will emerge from this holding room, walks through the North Lounge, through this hallway, and all the way towards the main lobby, which I'm sure many of you are familiar with. The president will then turn left into the plenary hall, goes through these doors, walks down the center aisle, and up the rostrum. The national anthem is played, prayers are said, and the SONA begins at the appointed hour of 4 in the afternoon every fourth Monday of July before a joint session of Congress. This year, the SONA opens the 18th Congress. The only other time a joint session of Congress happens is when the Senate and the House convene to canvass the votes for President and Vice President in a national election. But they don't sit as lawmakers, but as what's known as the National Board of Canvassers. Of course, the other rare, very rare occurrence in July of 2017 when Congress extended martial law in Mindanao because of Marao. Now, what is a State of the Nation address? Years ago, a newspaper columnist described the SONA as political theater. It's a speech that sets direction and vision, but it's a lot about performance and projection, soaring rhetoric, catchy phrases, human props such as Gloria Arroyo's Bangkang Papel Boys in 2001. That's called a Lenny Skutnik, by the way. A SONA puts the wind in the nation's sails. It's meant to tell us where the president wants to take us. Us, meaning his audience, the audience outside the Batasan and the audience inside the Batasan. And now that we've mentioned the audience, who's going to be here? Lawmakers, of course, because the Constitution says the president must address Congress. Both houses of Congress, senators, including the 12 who've been newly elected, and of course the members of the House of Representatives. Former presidents who as former heads of state are invited. There are only 3 reasons why a former president would not be here: if he or she has passed away or is gravely ill, if he or she is in detention, as was the practice beginning when Gloria Arroyo was president and Joseph Estrada was in detention, which also happened to Arroyo when Noynoy Aquino was president, or if they're not on very good terms with the incumbent. From the executive, the vice president will be here, although she and the president still aren't exactly the best of friends. Members of the diplomatic corps. But it won't be the dean of the diplomatic corps, the papal nuncio, the Vatican's representative here, on whom the spotlight will be, but on 2 ambassadors, Sung Kim of the United States, who's about to end his tour of duty, and the ambassador of China, Zhao Zhanhua. The U.S. has been all but relegated to the background now that President Duterte has made no secret of his preference for China. Also expected to be here, members of the president's official family, members of his cabinet and advisors, and Mr. Duterte's family. After EDSA in 1986, democratic institutions such as a bicameral legislature were restored with the 1987 Constitution. While the Senate occupied at first the old Senate building, which is now the National Museum, and then moved to its present location, rented space in the GSIS building in Pasay in the late 1990s, and will soon have a new building in Taguig, the new post-Marcos House of Representatives occupied the Batasang Pambansa, where every president after Marcos and since Cory Aquino has delivered his or her State of the Nation address. Cory Aquino delivered 5 SONAs here. Her first one spoke about democracy restored, the price and challenges to preserve it, and the latter SONAs her aversion to staying in power longer than what the 1987 Constitution prescribed. Fidel Ramos delivered 6 SONAs here. Joseph Estrada delivered only 3 throughout his abbreviated term as president, but he was the first president to allow militant groups to enter the Batasang complex during his first SONA in 1998, even stepping outside the building to meet them. Gloria Arroyo delivered 9 SONAs here because she served out the last half of Estrada's term and then ran in 2004 to win a fresh 6-year term. Arroyo is best known for her 2001 SONA, where she used human props, and for the SONA of 2005, where she steered clear of the most serious threat to her presidency, allegations that she manipulated the vote in 2004. Noynoy Aquino delivered 6 SONAs here, most of the time critical of his predecessor. Now let's go even further back in history. Every president since Manuel L. Quezon has delivered a State of the Nation address, whether it was known by other names, delivered in months other than July, and in places other than the Batasan. What did the president talk about? We can't really be sure until the speech itself. The only thing for sure is that the president is most unpredictable. But prepared script or not, the president is known anyway to veer off script and deliver extemporaneous remarks. Last year, however, he stuck to the script and spoke for only 48 minutes. So we can say, given his penchant for delivering speeches that can make you literally fall off your chair, he's not going to disappoint, is he? I've covered every State of the Nation address since 1994, and well, it is, hands down, Rodrigo Duterte who does deliver the most exciting ones. I'm Pia Hontiveros for CNN Philippines.